Jason Voorhees is one of those characters where you can't ever catch a break of being either overrated or underrated to the end. But recently I did, or another editor did via a funny edit, Jason versus Leon Kennedy, and more so Resident Evil. That has started a more interesting debate or funny debacle, so I decided that, for a fun video, this would be the case. Since my upload schedule is absolutely amazing, that this video will be how does Jason fare against Resident Evil characters? How far does he go overall? Let's find out. But before we begin, I want to encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications every time you see a new video, etc. We've hit 10,000 subscribers, and I really want to say thank you so much for that, and I want to hit further goals with you guys, so I can, make better stuff in the future. But without that, let's begin. So, for the versions, there'll be multiple for Jason I'll be using, or just simply the main canon of the movies, in the comics, etc. And I'll be using Deadite Jason for this. As that's kind of more easier to do and easier to scale. I could mention Uber Jason, but I'm not really, fond of mentioning Uber Jason, especially since people love using Deadite more. I could maybe mention Uber Jason in a short though, so if you want me to do that, then that can't happen. But anyways, as for Resident Evil characters, I'll mainly use 3 characters as our representatives, and I'll also be just going off the remake timeline since I am more familiar with the remake than the original. I know a bit of the original, just not to a heavy extent where I feel competent enough to make a video on it. So I'll be just more going off the remake. I will mention maybe 1 or 2 things from the original, but that's gonna be about it. The main representatives for Resident Evil I'll be using will be just Mr. X, Nemesis, and Leon Kennedy. And Leon makes sense because of something later. I originally was going to have Wesker in the mix, but after looking at a lot of things in my server, I was like, yeah, Jesus Christ, absolutely no. We cannot have Wesker versus Jason, bro. That just can't happen. But anyways, let's begin. Now, if I'm being completely honest with the power scaling, Jason is trying to power scale Nightmare from FNAF. Except, one actually has feats. But anyways, Jason's scaling is mostly between wall level plus to around small building level, as he's consistently shown to do things such as crashing an RV, which was wall level, or surviving the Part 7 explosion, which was all calculated at wall level plus. The reason this doesn't really scale that high, even without the calc, I just don't think it scales that high, is because Jason wasn't really in a distance to the furnace, which is the vicinity that basically caused the explosion. Along with that, there's not actually that much gasoline on there to basically be ignited, so I don't really think Jason tanked a full output of this explosion, and so this calc is at least what he likely tanked. But I digress. But down the road, we also have the Frey versus Jason explosion, which used to be building level, but due to minor flaws in the distance and other things not being taken into account, there have been a few recalcs, and the newest of them have been around small building level. There was one for small building plus, and if you want to still use it, then you can. But basically speaking, there's minor flaws within this feat, not to mention the feat just not being that insane the more I kept watching it. But there's also another one, as Jason even survives a plane crash, which was also around small building level. So at least there's a consistent pattern with Jason. Well, isn't that for a good change? So yeah, Jason at least has some decent scalings upon him for at least his durability, which he should scale easily for his AP, since he can affect Freddy, who obviously can affect him, yada yada yada. As for Jason's speed, it's also something that's debated amongst my peers, but I'm going to give my perspective. He's at least around subsonic for possibly outrunning a helicopter gunfire. Even then, from the scan I'm showing on screen, it's ambiguous about that, since you can't really properly justify either a reaction or really running away. But I gave the simplest answer in my mind. There's not really any other speed feats you can give. You can argue Ash, but I don't really think that's consistent enough. Plus, Jason and more so their encounters, especially in the store fight, one because of brute strength. Yeah, I think that's gonna be it for Jason, so yeah, let's just get to the Resident Evil characters. Alright, so here's the part where I kind of get most excited about. Since recently I've come to really love this franchise. I ain't exactly knowledgeable in everything, as I've already said, and have had friends help me with rebunks and calculations, so shout out to y'all. As for Jason's first comparison, Mr. X, he's at least around wall level to wall level plus via being able to burst through a lot of walls and his best feat in his super tyrant form, destroying bigger rocks, along with barging over an elevator which has calcs between class 50 or another friend's and Midavi to be around class M, which is higher than Deadeye Jason as his lifting strength is at least as of now class 25 for spine ripping, which as y'all can see in the calculation itself, spine ripping was debunked by my mutual from class K to class 25, since basically the difference between destroying a spine and tearing out a spine is completely different for ambiguous reasons. So, but this is kind of a thing for Jason to win since there is a AP gap and also a speed gap since Mr. X in the remake isn't really all that fast, nor he is even in the original as well. So Jason does win this. The same cannot be said for Nemesis. Nemesis is kind of where Jason would just straight up lose. They're both around small building level, but Nemesis is more consistent and into surviving better than Jason, or even partially no selling small building stuff, or just surviving it way better than Jason did. Yeah. He's also higher into small building level with higher megajoule amounts than Jason's, as y'all can pay attention in the calculations itself. But anyways, Nemesis has other feats consisting of, well, surviving a mass part of a subway explosion, which scales, as I already said, higher than Frey versus Jason feat, along with other feats that I'm showing on here. As for his speed, he's at least around subsonic to maybe subsonic plus via consistent reaction time to rockets amongst other feats. Not to mention that Nemesis even has effective weapons to combat Jason, even if you were to say that Jason was higher than him, such as having his own rocket launcher and even a flamethrower, and his tentacles, and he in the Nemesis T-type virus to even infect Jason, which has shown if you get infected with Jill, it can actually instantly take over you. So yeah, Nemesis basically scales a bit higher than Jason into small building level, has better speed feats, and also has just weapons and axes. He basically kind of outclasses Jason in almost everything. Anyway, so I think that's gonna be it. So yeah, Nemesis kind of wins that. So the reason that I had Leon on this, if you guys were wondering, since we're now on Leon, is, well, because of things that I already said earlier, but I'm going to extend it now. So yeah, Leon was kind of basically one of the reasons that this video even exists, because I made a take of, well, saying that Leon would slam Jason, which is still funny to me. So for Leon's scaling, he mostly has like really simple stuff like tanking direct attacks and even being slammed by William Birkin, which then like made a whole floor beneath them collapse, along with one-shotting Mr. X with a rocket launcher that was able to knock out Nemesis, as shown later on in RE3, along with kicking down a wall and even having feats on Sattler that can cause earthquakes, which were calculated to be around town level, and even having scaling to Krauser, his trainer, which in speed has between massively hypersonic plus calculations to even a new FTL to FTL plus for basically flashbangs. Now, I've seen people try to refute our Resident Evil scaling by making these very funny comments and even saying, well, funny things like how characters can't take this, struggle with this, yada, yada, yada. But we already kind of got the context for these, and I have even screenshots that I'm going to show up here that really just shows that people who make these types of claims are ones that don't really look at Resident Evil to an extent that, no, they should be credible for. Even the funniest of them was using RPGs, despite not really none of them being shown other than tyrants. But if they are referring to Wesker, then that was the same Wesker that literally not only caught an RPG, but literally was engulfed in lava and even weakened weakened earlier from a serum, and he already survived one, but basically then was hit 2 times with one to kill him permanently. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, overall, I have Leon just slamming Jason there as well, pretty easily. If in an edit you want to give Jason brute strength, that's fine. But otherwise, Leon kind of just slams an AP in other matters. You could mention Uber Jason, which I think I'll squeeze in Uber Jason real quick. So, yeah, let's squeeze in Uber Jason. All right, so even though my actual script is done, I think I'll just squeeze in Uber Jason real quick. Uber Jason is kind of just, well, Jason if he actually was pretty consistent, since Uber Jason also spreads from even Jason X and even the novelizations where we have multiple versions of Uber Jason. But in the original movie, Uber Jason tanks the side of the ship explosion that he and Roski was in, which has a calculation of being around building level plus. I do think there's like another one that can get to large building, but I think that varies. Plus, I think this one's just better for my preference. Along with that, he also falls from space, where it also makes a pretty big crash into the earth, which also has a calculation of being around building level. He has class M lifting strength calcs, and even Uber should scale off all the other feats that Deadite Jason has, but be superior because Uber Jason is basically just the purest type of form. Like basically just Jason just mass upgraded. He also just one-shots KM, and he's resistant to all her weaponry, which just destroyed the Deadite Jason, or at least the cloned Deadite Jason. He has a possible city level scaling, but if I'm being honest, it's not really applicable to him, since really this is just based off assumptions and possibility. Plus, his more consistent stuff are just more better to just go on a massive leap. Along with that, he also just defeats a cloned version of Deadite Jason. So yeah, Uber Jason, he is an improvement of Jason in terms of AP. It's just that in terms of other stuff, yeah, I don't really think of him that much, if I'm being honest with you. Jason also does have pretty good hacks, if I'm being honest. I think it would maybe matter if it was like Uber Jason. But since a lot of these don't necessarily matter too much when it comes to like Resident Evil characters, that I don't really care enough. I'll just like have a video thing showing them on screen. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for the video, because I wanted to do this like a brief one, and along with just update you guys with some content, because I have not been uploading once again. School has started back, so I have been focusing on that more, along with just getting the grades in and all that, and focusing on work. You know, my birthday's coming up in like 24 days at this point, so I'm trying to focus on, you know, getting the life together and all that. But I'm gonna at least try my best to give y'all some videos. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it. Make sure to like the video, subscribe. I'm gonna put the scalings on basically everybody that I've scaled in this video on screen. That'll probably be the outro or whatever. But yeah, this has been Unknown, making some Resident Evil content. If you guys want more Resident Evil content, because I do have a video for Wesker in the future, then let me know. Without that, peace.